Gaijin Entertainment presents The Shooting Range. You're watching The Shooting Range, a weekly show for all tankers, airmen, and aspiring captains in War Thunder. In this episode, we'll try to destroy an enemy plane with a tank that is stationed 10 kilometers away from the target. Easy shot, huh? Soviet tank camouflage. Is it okay to paint your vehicle with whitewash? Hotline. The developers answer questions that you left in the comments. But first, let's start with good planes for hard men, an Australian aircraft set for arcade battles. There are 5 Australian warplanes in the game. Naturally, we'll take them all. The first is the attacker aircraft called Whirlaway. It's light, slow, and very vulnerable to cannon fire. But most of its opponents also come from the same early period of the war, so it's no big deal. The Whirlaway can carry enough bombs to get rid of a couple of pillboxes, and its 2 machine guns excel at destroying softer land targets. Next comes a crowd favorite, the fearsome Bristol Beaufort, the Australian Mark 8 DAP version. It's basically a flying jack of all trades. Not only it is capable of dealing with almost any kind of threat, it also does a very good job of downing enemy fighters at your 6. It is able to take quite a few hits and has a great rear armament that tears through everything at its rank. Truly a thing of beauty. We'll need some escort for friendly bombers though. That's where the 2 boomerangs come into play. We already told you about these monsters in one of our pages of history. Any player that fought against a boomerang knows that this aircraft should never be underestimated. 2 20mm Hispano cannons with loads of ammo, a few machine guns on top of that, and excellent handling characteristics at low altitudes make this fighter a great pick for any Aussie. And then there's this beaut, the RAAF Beaufighter Mark 21. Yeah, it's slow and clumsy in comparison to its British peers, but the Australian Beaufighter is armed for bear. For the flying Axis bears to be exact. With 4 cannons and 4 Browning machine guns, this brute is, let's say, capable of enacting swift justice anytime, anywhere. That's a good time to ask. What about balance? The BR gap between these planes is so big that you can probably fit a couple of Australias inside. Well, you are right, but we have at least 2 answers to that question. First, this is a set of Australian planes, and Aussies are known far and wide for their unwavering badassery, so it kind of fits. Second, if you can't see the beauty of facing Focke-Wulfs and top-notch Gustavs in your rusty Whirlaway, then just remove the Beaufighter and you're all set. When people think of a Soviet armored vehicle, they typically imagine its color olive drab, perhaps with some red stars here and there. In reality, it was a lot more interesting than that. As early as in 1939, Soviet specialists developed a deforming color scheme for tanks and armored cars. They opted for a large spotted pattern involving 3 or 4 colors. You had to use at least 2, usually dark brown and olive drab, but additional colors were added to reflect the features of the area where the vehicle was supposed to be used. A very reasonable decision given that the Soviet Union spanned over thousands of kilometers east to west across 11 time zones. It included a variety of drastically different biomes. For example, in the Kiev military district and the Volga military district, the tanks were also covered in sea green and yellow-brown. It looked very well on paper and was a success in trials, but wasn't easy to implement in real life. In 1940, the Soviet industry was mass-producing military-grade paint only in 3 basic colors: 6K, dark brown, 7K, yellow earth, and 4BO, olive drab. The latter quickly became the staple color for the Soviet armor, usually covering at least 50% of the vehicle surfaces. Other 2 colors were applied whenever possible in equal measure. In winter, green spots were painted over solid white, most often using chalk mixture or even water mixed with lime. But the war did not wait politely for Soviet tankers to solve logistic and supply problems. Active Army units had to apply deforming color schemes to their tanks and other vehicles on their own, without any guidance. Not surprisingly, the lack of appropriate colors and poor execution somewhat limited the effectiveness of such camouflage. That's why, at the end of 1941, a massive effort was undertaken to devise new instructions for camouflage painting. This time, all factors were taken into account. The manual listed the requirements for the size, form, color of the spots, as well as for the way the spots had to be arranged. It listed only the paints that could be readily obtained. It also prohibited the use of stencils. Among other things, the document stated, spots must imitate natural shapes, must have wobbly contours, and must vary in shape and size. Some new rules concerned the winter camouflage. For example, the new instruction denounced the use of lime mixture. Nominally, these rules were abolished only in 1945, but in practice, everything changed in 1943, when Soviet forces started to gain the upper hand. There was a shift in priorities. As the USSR was launching massive counteroffensives involving all branches of the army, the ease of identification and recognition quickly came to the fore. Tactical markings became more important than camouflage itself. We've done some planes with rockets, we've destroyed some tanks with torpedoes. Now let's try to make an impressive long-range shot. How about destroying an aircraft sitting on an airfield that is 10 kilometers away? Let's take a vehicle with a high-caliber gun. The Soviet IS-2 will do. Its 122mm armament should be powerful enough to deliver a shot at bombers waiting for takeoff at a distant airfield. We're playing on Poland, by the way. Here we can just find ourselves in a nice position and fire away. There are no major obstacles that would make it difficult to aim. Let's load up some HE rounds and get down to business. We have to admit that we came prepared. We already calculated the distance to the target and determined our line of fire. There's still one tricky thing to consider though, the angle of fire. Like this, maybe? Our comrades will report our successes, and what's more likely, failures, right from the airfield. We take aim, fire. That's a miss. Another shot, and it looks like our shell fell short of the target. Or did it? We deliberately try to shoot over the plane, still not a trace of our shell. Well, let's try our luck with APHE rounds then. Fire. Looks like we can make it. We just have to make some adjustments. Here it goes. Almost got it. We send a third shell, and that's a direct hit. As you can see, it can be done. You can actually damage or even destroy enemy aircraft at their own airstrip while firing from miles away. Just like that. Can you do the same? Finally, it's time for the traditional last part of our show, Hotline, developers answering questions from the comments. Strictly speaking, it's not the most serious-minded section of the show. If you want answers to be given with solemn faces, feel free to appeal to the official forums. Here we'll have a more lighthearted discussion of the big questions of War Thunder. We'll hope you like it. The first question comes from a player called UU Brink. Not the easiest name to pronounce, I hope we did it right. Will you guys add the sonic boom? No, we do not plan to do that. There are currently only a few aircraft in the game that can get to the sound barrier, and even that, only in a dive. Tiny Yamato asks, will we ever get French armor? Yep. And no, we will not be adding special shells that make the gun eject white flags, because the French were legitimate badasses. Can't say much else though. Then there's a question from Hard as Sponge. Since the Brits are missing a derp gun, can we have the Churchill AVRE? Very unlikely, sorry. This vehicle, although fascinating, had a very specific role in the battlefield. It was used for quick leveling of enemy fortifications. Doesn't really fit anywhere in the current version of gameplay. Then there's an important question from a player called the P Gamer. Can I shoot sushi with Japanese tanks? Hi! That's it for today, but feel free to write your questions in the comments below. We do read them all, and you might see some of them answered in the next episode. If you like what we're doing, Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. See you on the shooting range.